all the doctors and everybody said, like, there's just no way physically you can keep a child. I thought, how can I feel so strongly that this is going to be the making of me if my body's not going to allow it?
Martine McCutcheon.
Award-winning actress and singer.
That's known for her iconic roles in Eastenders and Love Actually.
People thought it was kind of quite of a snobby thing, but the only reason I did the job of Eastenders, I was broke. I became like fodder for the press. I played this vixen tart with a heart. Even the press kind of thought I was her, which was even more triggering, I think, for the masking. What if you weren't as sweet? Maybe you weren't as lovable as she was, but you had to be, because that's how you made your living. That's how you made people happy, and that made you happy.
If you could go back in time with that awareness and whisper something into the young Martine ear, right at that moment you were about to sign to join the biggest soap opera in the UK, what would you tell that younger version of yourself?
That one day I just sobbed. I felt so sad for all the things that could have been so different if only I'd known.
This episode is dedicated to anyone who can create a beautifully detailed to-do list, but then really struggles to actually complete any of it. This sponsored ad was agreed to be 90 seconds long, but because I know most of you have ADHD, I negotiated it down to 89 seconds. I challenge you to test your ADHD by seeing if you can sit still for 1 minute 30 seconds while I tell you about our sponsor, Tiimo app. If I can sit down and record take after take of this message for 2 hours, then I'm sure you can listen to 90 seconds. So here's a short word from our sponsor. Tiimo app is a perfectly tailored app that I use daily, and maybe it's worth you giving it a try to see how it might improve organising your life too. Running a podcast is actually a lot harder than you might think, and juggling all of the moving parts would be near impossible if it weren't for Tiimo app. How? Well, Tiimo is designed specifically to hack the neurodivergent brain, a brain that might struggle with time agnosia, object permanence, memory cognitive load, task initiation, anxiety, or procrastination. All things I'm extremely guilty of too. And how on earth does it help you, Alex? I hear you scream impatiently at your computer or phone screens. Well, the award-winning Tiimo app is the perfect life-hacking tool to help your time management and kick you up the bum when you need it most. If you want to stay ahead of the competition, then the visual planning Tiimo app is specifically designed to help your structuring, organising, focusing, and goal setting. It has a visual timer, providing a tangible and visual representation of time to help users pace themselves so you never miss a deadline ever again. It also has an efficient lock screen reminder service to alert those of you who are very out of sight, out of mind with your chores and afraid you might forget them. It brilliantly centres all of your tasks in one place across devices, both on a web and mobile apps, to streamline your overflowing schedules and make them much more digestible and a lot less intimidating. And for those who find big tasks too overwhelming to even start, Tiimo breaks them down into more manageable subtasks to get the ball rolling. In fact, this app helps me so much that it actually reminded me to record this message to advertise the app. Give it a go. Why not? It might just help. Anyway, back to the episode. Martine, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
You've probably been, well, you have been in a lot of studios in your life.
I have, I've watched your show.
Yeah, how does this studio compare to others you've seen?
Do you know what? I think it kind of, you talk the talk and you walk the walk, Alex. This is like proper random ADHD set.
I think we had one comment on YouTube saying it was the most fun studio they've ever seen, someone had ever seen.
Yeah, it is fun.
And we've got a dog now as well.
And we've also got Don the dog. Yeah. Who decided to come with us tonight. Didn't you, darling?
So just for the watchers, and how old's Don?
Don is 3 years old.
Yeah.
He's just the most adorable little dog. I've always had dogs growing up. And he is just the best behaved and lovely dog I've ever had in my life. And I've had lots of dogs, but he's special, that one.
Martine, all of these items on the shelves, they're people's ADHD item.
Yeah.
So there's a range of things, and I've asked you to tell me what your ADHD item is, and I'm going to reveal it underneath this cloth.
I'm glad you can do that.
And then we're going to talk about it a bit later on. Let's find out what's underneath the cloth.
Dun, dun, dun.
That is. I mean, it's an alarm clock, right? It's a classic alarm clock. Very, very. I've got some suspicions. Very intriguing to know what it is, but we'll talk about it a little later on.
Okay.
A very simple question to start, but probably quite an important one.
Okay.
When was your first memory of feeling different?
Oh, God, I mean, 4? Probably 4 years old. And I had lots of reasons that I thought even then I felt kind of, rational in my thinking because I had a really difficult childhood. Really quite violent and quite traumatic. And, quite traumatic. I'm not upset. I'm just traumatic. I've learned to live with it. No, it was quite a traumatic childhood. And I think that I thought I felt different because my own dad didn't love me, which I think you might feel anyway. And I felt a sense of kind of like abandonment. And my escape was always outfits, movies, music. It just felt like whenever I kind of indulged in those things, I could just feel like I'd come home. I think because it was just so unconditional, it was always there, always made me feel me. And it could be a big rock song, or it could be opera, or it could be anything. And I would go to fancy dress. Wear fancy dress. I would go to school in fancy dress every day. And what was so great, because I was so young, I was 4 at the time when I started it, the other kids didn't blink an eyelid because of, kids went in with those boingy things on their heads at the time and whatever. And I think I started that. I went to the caravan in Clacton with my family and I came up with the boingy things and I loved the attention I got. And I was like, I'm going to take it up a notch. I'm going to take it up another notch. And then the next thing was like the whole outfit, walking to school with my little Irish nan and going as a bumblebee or a fairy or whatever it may be. And I just loved it. I just loved that I could be whatever I wanted to be. And it did feel different, but it felt, when I dressed up, it felt better for being different. Whereas when I didn't have the outfit, it felt more lonely rather than celebrated.
Was it an early mask, the outfit?
Yeah, for sure. From many things, not just from ADHD. I think it was just feeling different and just not feeling enough. And I think that so many people that have ADHD or have had a parent abandon them or not love them or not treat them well, when it's so young, you do feel like there's something faulty with you as it is. And then put into the mix the way that your brain works and the way you think and it not kind of fitting in with the rest of society, you're bound to feel like that, I think. Natural.
You were raised in Hackney.
Yeah.
And it's fair to say, or to say the least, you had a very tumultuous time.
Yeah.
And there's various camps within the ADHD community. Some people think that trauma can be a contributing factor. Do you think your early years is connected in any way to your ADHD?
I think for sure it's magnified it. I don't know if it's something that I could say. I don't believe that the way I think is just because of my childhood circumstances, but I do think it was something that contributed to just how much I had to kind of push against the tide with it and mask it. It took that extra bit of oomph for sure because of those circumstances. But I don't think that they were solely responsible for it, no.
Why do you think you were diagnosed later on in life?
For me, mine was an accident. Fluke. I think maybe they say God doesn't give you anything you can't handle. And it's so true that bit, well, then I must be a badass. Because, like, what next? But I was, my husband knew he had ADHD, but he'd been told and never really was told anything else. And he was like, well, now what do I do? And nothing really changed. And then a friend of his who also had it said, look, why don't you go? And I went with him. And whilst I was in the waiting room, they just said, oh, would you like to fill out a form and have a test as well? There's the appointment after your husband's isn't coming, so if you want to, you can. And I was like, oh, yeah, I will actually. I think I'm not like, I hate really waiting for a long time and get a bit fidgety, and I hate queues and things like that. And this woman was like, like this Cheshire cat smile. And I remember sort of thinking, she looked as if to say, we've got one. But I was like, no, I don't have ADHD. No. And I wasn't kind of like, I didn't look down on it. I didn't think it was anything less than or anything like that. My brother had special needs, as they called it, quite severely growing up. And it was something that he conquered, and the things that he found difficult, he used to his favour in an amazing way. He had the most successful life, actually. He was a real success story. But so I kind of knew that it wasn't anything like that. And I knew a bit about it, but I just didn't think it was me. I'd really, really convinced myself brilliantly that there was no way it was me. And I did the test, and I was there with bells on. And I was like, at first, I was like, they've got it wrong. Kind of forgot about it. And my mum was like, oh, I know you said that you've been diagnosed with ADHD, and there's this book about women and how it's very different. And I was like, but I don't have it. I think they got it wrong. She was like, what do you mean they got it wrong? Like, you did a full-on private, like, indulgent, pretty fabulous test, Martine, and your score was high. And I was like, yeah, but it's complicated. I'm complicated. There's loads of other factors in this. It's complex. I don't think it's just that, I think it's just a lazy label. And she was like, okay. But I remember you, Martine, I do remember you find it difficult to just get your bag together. And you'd have to really like rev yourself up for school. Like, you really had to focus to do it. And you were always kind of a bit of a slave to your impulses and your emotions and your heart and all of those things that kind of ruled your head. And I was like, yeah, so kill me. It was mornings, I'm not a morning person. So I was never good at organising things in the morning, and just a bit of a hopeless romantic. It's just the way I'm built. I was just in denial about it. Talked a really good talk about getting myself out of it. And then my brother passed away. And I just thought, if I'm going to investigate this for myself, and there are little things I'm starting to become more aware of and conscious of with myself, I'm going to have to do it when I've got the time to do it. And right now, I don't have the time to do it. So I'm going to put it on the back burner. And I think there was a part of me that knew I was going to be sad, that knew I was going to be a bit upset about all the years that had gone. And I couldn't put that on top of my grief for my brother. So it had to wait. I had to park it. And I also knew that it was probably linked with my ME that I have and the huge sacrifices that I'd made and the loss that I'd had in my life because of it. It completely changed my life. So I wasn't ready to face it. And then I finally was. And I was reading things, and I saw your podcast, and I saw you on Instagram, and I started reading more and more. And then I sobbed. One day I just sobbed. And I felt so sad for all the things that could have been so different if only I'd known. All the choices that I would have made from a different place, from a different angle, that would have been so much more kind and compassionate to who I was. Yeah, I definitely grieved. I was really, really upset to begin with. And then I started to think, oh, but now I know. And I'm at an age that I actually am in a position now where I am listening to myself and my gut and what I really want. And maybe if I'd have known before, maybe I wouldn't have honoured myself the way that I do now. I wouldn't have known myself and trusted myself enough to validate that label or whatever, that behaviour or that way that I think. And I'm very conscious of labels and names because I think as human beings, we're so much more than that. And I don't want to be defined by anything. I'm more than that. I'm more than ADHD. I'm more than ME. I'm more than a mum. I'm more than a woman. I'm more than an actress and a performer. We're all more than that. And I think it's really important to remember that whatever diagnosis you have, it's part of you. It's not all of you. It's not a reason to not be anything. It's just a reason to come at it in a way that suits you better. And ignorance is bliss for a while, but then it's painful. And it's destructive, actually, as you know. And it was time. It was time to be all of me, truthful, honest, warts and all, and be brave and just do it and be it. And now I've done it, I can't go back and I don't want to. But I think if I'd have known before, I don't know if I'd have completely honoured it like I should. Might have been in denial and just self-sabotaged and, oh no, it's too hard to think about that. And I think the time now in the world makes it so much more something you can live with because people like yourself are flagging things that I would never have even known before were reasons that I was struggling with life, my whole life. And thanks to you and thanks to other people that have gone through their own journey and their own losses and sacrifices and heartache or whatever, being brave enough to talk about it and actually making you feel like it's not a deficit and it's not really a disorder, it's just a different way of coming at things. It's just made it allowable. And I think how lucky am I that in my lifetime and at my age, I've still got time to write my story. I think it's really exciting, actually.
Your story is truly inspiring, Martine. And there's a lot there. I think there's a lot of people will be listening to you, clapping and
I hope so.
Seeing themselves in what you've just said. There's a lot there. I think the denial piece is very strong, especially when I think a lot of people have internal prejudice towards ADHD and a lot of internal misinformation just based off the information that's been out there for so long, the wrong information. So they get the diagnosis at whatever age, and because of that misinformation, that internal prejudice, they sort of instinctively go on the back foot and go, no, that's not me, because that's not what I think ADHD is. But ADHD, like we know, is not actually a lot of the time what the stereotype and what the stigma suggests it is.
So much more than that. I've spent my life, I think one of my life lessons, if it exists, is that not to be defined by lazy labels. And that's something I've dealt with all my life. And then I was kind of doing it to myself without realising it, like you say, that internal prejudice that you don't want to believe you're having because as somebody who's got ADHD and has mastered it, you're perfect. You're doing perfect as far as what the world wants from you. You are doing really well. You're being perfect. You're being as perfect as you can be. And if you're perfect, you're really kind and you're aware and you're conscious. And if you had it, you would know you had it and you would embrace it and you'd do the right thing. Not necessarily, because that perfect you that you're being is not the real you. You're not perfect. You're complex, you're complicated, you're destructive sometimes, you're all of those things. And it takes guts to it takes guts to really love and to love yourself enough to hold that safe space to say, okay, which bits of this is me and which bits of this isn't me? And I've got to be really honest with myself here. Have I been hurting myself in any way? Have I been hurting others in any way that I've not been aware of because of, because of this? And yeah, I think, I don't know if, I definitely don't think, as much as I'm angry sometimes still and upset sometimes still, that 3 years ago is when I got my diagnosis and not before, I just don't think I would have been mature enough or wise enough or to know myself enough to have taken that information and done something constructive with it. I think it might have just hurt and upset me and made me feel even more less than when I was already trying hard not to feel like that.
There's so much there, isn't there? There's the unmasking, there's the overthinking, the people pleasing, the figuring out what's you and what's a coping mechanism. I mean, let's try and I want to go on that journey with you. You started performing very early in your life.
Yeah.
How was it as a child to be a performer, and how did that detract from your academia?
I was always a really deep thinker. I would always kind of love philosophy and life and human behaviour. And for me, movies and music was a place where nothing bad could happen. Not the movies I was watching at that age anyway. And it was brave because when you feel in your heart, when you really love someone, that these magical, crazy things happen that you're a bit embarrassed to admit. Music and film does it. It kind of lets you're allowed to do it when you watch it, and you're allowed to sing along with it, and it makes it allowed. And I think for me, when I turned to those things when I was younger, it made me feel I could be me and I was allowed to be me, and it felt glorious. That's the only way I can describe it. I felt safe and I felt glorious. And for me, the biggest things in my challenges probably have been feeling safe for a number of reasons, and not feeling enough, just not feeling enough, never being enough. No matter what I do, just never, ever being enough. And, I can say that now because as a mother who has a beautiful young son, I realised that you're born enough. And we do all these things, all this masking, or all these behaviours that we think will make us more lovable. According to who? Who says? And I look at my little boy Rafferty, and I don't love him because, he did really well at school that day. He just opens his eyes and I love him. He just is. And that was a massive, massive thing for me, was becoming a mum, because there was that unconditional, just is love. And it helped me really start from scratch and love myself bit by bit by bit by bit. And there were these storms that came along, tornadoes that knocked me over and made me doubt things. But I think the things that have happened in my life, because I've had him and the loss I had of my brother, that extreme love and that extreme loss, you can't help but look at yourself and become wiser and more true to you, and just go, you know what? Life is short. It's too short to not be me. It's too hard. And it's not meant to be hard. We're made to believe that we have to work hard and we have to do more. More is more. It's not. It's absolute bollocks. It isn't. Just being you and what you bring to the table is something I could never bring to the table. That's enough. And it's such a relief when someone says that to you, or you say it to yourself. You just go, Oh, God. And I think it sounds so naff, but if there's one thing that I would say to anybody like going through the journey of ADHD or whatever, it's just like, it sounds so naff, but it is like most problems come from us just not loving ourselves enough unconditionally. We just don't. We'll love ourselves if we do this. We love ourselves if we do that. And like I say, when I had my son, I was like, absolutely not. That's rubbish. Love yourself no matter what. No matter what. So important. And I do now.
It's that feeling of feeling broken, feeling different, a lifetime of not understanding why you can't do certain things that everyone else seems to be able to do with ease.
I know. And thinking everybody else has got it sussed. Everybody else is more popular. Everybody else is able to have a better conversation. Everybody else is less sensitive. They're not going back and thinking about, why did they look at me like that? What did they do that for? Did I upset them? Did I say this? Did I say the wrong thing? You know, and magnifying your insecurities. And they've probably just walked off and not even thought about you. And it's kind of like self-indulgent, but it's not from a place of ego. It is from lack of. You feel like a lack of. And it's so lovely when you realise it wasn't that at all. It was just that you're coming at that party, those people, that first boyfriend, that first love, the popular group. You're just coming at it from a different angle.
You look back and you question decisions you made or what could have been different if you had known. I mean, relationships, jobs.
Everything. Absolutely everything. Because this isn't just the way you think, it's the way you feel. It's what you base your self-worth, your identity on. It's everything. It's your energy. It's the essence of you. And I think what I take comfort in is that personally, with what I believe, it gives me comfort. And I'm a very, I always go when someone says they're a spiritual person, they're just a dickhead. But I am a very spiritual person. And I'm learning to say things that I mean without apology. But I am a very spiritual person. I do believe that we come here to learn certain lessons and we've chosen them as bad or as difficult as they may be. Because you can't know, as we've said, you know, with books, you know, conversations with God, you can't know light unless you've been in darkness. You just can't know that someone's put the light on unless you've been in true darkness. And you have to be ready for that light when it shines so bright. It's in your face. And there's no like grey area. It's on or it's not. A bit like us.
Many viewers of the podcast will, of course, recognise you from EastEnders.
Yeah.
As the iconic...
The old ones. Yeah. The old ones. Because I was a little baby when I did that. Yeah, I was only 18 when I did that, yeah. So they will probably know me best for that, the older lot. And then I think the newer generation, because Love Actually is such a timeless film, and it's shown every year. It's mad. You think, oh, this is my audience. And it's kind of like the gift that keeps on giving, because for me, I do what I do because I want to inspire real people to do wonderful things, and that it can happen to you. It can. And when people say, why you, say, why not? Why not? It's going to happen to someone. And that's, other than being a mother, and in my life, for me, my purpose in life, I feel, is to inspire real people to have magical stuff and do magical things. I hope that's what I managed to do. Yeah, because I think that's what it's all about. I think, love and inspiring people. And that's why I still, I don't think it's a coincidence that I did Love Actually, and what that whole film's message is about is me. That's what I believe in too. And it may not be the coolest thing in the world, credible thing in the world, but I don't know one person that hasn't got something in common with a part of that film. that I consider human. So, great.
Well, it's definitely my favourite Christmas film. I mean, it genuinely is.
I like Lampoon, Christmas Lampoon.
That's good as well. That's good. I mean, I used to watch
shouldn't say that,
EastEnders.
but I do.
I used to watch EastEnders as well.
Yeah. How old were you when you watched EastEnders? You must have been a baby.
No, probably.
How old are you now?
36. Yeah.
Okay, so you were 10 years young. Yeah, so you were watching when you were about 10.
Yeah. So we used to watch it every night, Monday, Tuesday, and then it got added onto a Thursday, and that was a big celebration when they added an extra day. 4 nights a week we used to watch EastEnders.
Wow.
So the iconic character Tiffany. What was it like? Like, what was the pressure like of being in the UK's most watched soap opera for such a long time?
It's great. I loved it. You know, I really needed attention, and too much just wasn't enough. I think it was that whole, what would have been a real daddy's girl not having that love and that attention and that adoration from somebody that I looked like. My mum's blonde, blue-eyed, and it just had this huge void, and that mixed with everything else going on. I never wanted to do soap, and I definitely didn't want to do EastEnders, because for me, I spent my life, as I say, wanting to get away from real life. Real life was dull. It didn't match up to what was in my head, the colours I saw, the ideas I had. What on earth would I want to spend my life being an actress for, playing the very thing I'm trying to get away from? And people thought it was kind of quite of a snobby thing, but the only reason I did the job of EastEnders, I was broke. I needed the money. I wasn't, from a wealthy family that could keep me ticking whilst I waited for the crucible to happen, So it got to the point where my agent said to me, look, Martine, go for it. Please just go for it. And if you get it, you can say no, but it'd be great to know, how far you go with it. And she's a really brilliant character, and she's only in it for maximum 17 episodes whilst they find a real friend for Bianca. And I was like, okay, yeah, it'd be a good experience. You're right. They're not going to remember me. I'll pop in, pop out. It went, if you get it. I went, I'll get it. At ADHD moments of overconfidence and what did I say that for? I probably won't get it. I'm not going to get it. I'm not going to get it. I'll get it. And yeah, I did. I went in. I was literally in t-shirt, biker boots and jeans, and they were like, "Can you come back dressed as you think Tiffany would dress?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, it's easy. I know women like that. I brought up with them." And I went back, with my French pleat done in my hair and my full face of makeup, hiding that we don't have anything at all. More is more glamorous, more lipstick. The shorter the skirt, the better. The higher the heels, the better. The stronger the perfume, the better. And I went back in, being Tiffany from the moment I walked in. And it was fun. It was a kind of a way of me to reflect on my life, my upbringing as well. And it was kind of cathartic that so many people loved the character and fell in love with her, because she really was complex too. And she was a girl that didn't really play by the rules. She was a tart with a heart. She wore her heart on her sleeve, and she wasn't a woman of mystery. If she said it and she felt it, she'd just say it. And in a way, it kind of made me feel better, because the fact that people loved her so much, maybe I was all right then. Maybe I was all right, because I was a bit like that sometimes.
And then, of course, you got the part, and the part of Tiffany ended up being a huge character. And I imagine it's quite rare for an actress to be in that position, to be consistently broadcast on TV 4 nights a week. How did you deal with that particular part of fame, and particularly your RSD reacting to being mentioned in the press and in interviews?
I think when I went into the show, I was in a relationship with my first love at 18. I was very scared of men because of my upbringing with my father, and I think I felt safe whilst I was with him. And then when my first love and I broke up, I became like fodder for the press, and not just as a woman, but, sexually, it was horrible, because even though I played this vixen tart with a heart, I was very scared of those things. And I played her very well, but even the press kind of thought I was her. I could almost handle what they were dishing out about me. And it was horrible because you just felt like meat. You just felt like you were this piece of meat that people were just saying all sorts of things about, linking you with this one and that one intimately. And it was something that I was really raw and not mature with at all, and felt really uneasy about it all. But again, did a really good job of brushing it off, pretended I didn't care, laughing and being tough when I was really vulnerable and very sensitive about it all, and very scared still after my first relationship. What if that was a one-off? What if I'm not really lovable? And now, as it is, I don't know if he knew all of me. And now, you know, I'm only 20. My next relationship, like, they're definitely not going to know all of me. They're going to think they know me. They don't know me at all. They've got these notions of me. I'm not that person at all. It's that she's like one smidge of me. And it was hard because it was a sort of fame that I never kind of planned to do, a very accessible fame. You always felt like you were letting people down if you weren't who they wanted you to be, which was even more triggering, I think, for the masking. What if you weren't as funny? What if you weren't as sweet? What if you weren't as nice? You know, maybe you weren't as lovable as she was. And there were some days you definitely weren't, but you had to be, because that's how you made your living. That's how you made people happy, and that made you happy. So it became this self-fulfilling cycle that went on and on and on and on. And it was exhausting because it wasn't just when I was on set. It was when I was having dinners, meeting new casting agents. They had this notion in their head of who you were and what they wanted you to be before you'd even walked in the room. And you had to be that and more. Otherwise, you wouldn't succeed, you wouldn't carry on. And I think that line, that boundary of like, where does that end and where does that begin? When you're so young, I found that really hard.
Do you think you're naturally drawn towards other neurodivergent people, both personally and professionally?
Yeah. Yeah. I think deep down, whether you're conscious of it or not, I think you attract your tribe. And I love my tribe now. I love them. I think they're the best thing ever. Bloody genius. I think they're brilliant, absolutely brilliant. They feel like I feel. They're emotional. They dare to dream, and then they set themselves up for the biggest falls all the time. But then they brush themselves down and they dare to love and dream and be brave more than anybody else I know. And I love that. I can't help but admire that. I think it's amazing. You just go for it. It's brilliant.
Have you found your tribe now? And how big is your sort of inner circle now? People that you
My inner circle, no. My really close inner circle is changing as we speak. But again, it's something I'm really excited about because, you know, now it's not on an unconscious level. Now I'm consciously choosing to do things and I'm attracting things in my life that is coming from a really authentic place. Truly authentic. Before I really thought it was. Genuinely believed it was. I was really doing my best. I didn't know, you know, people can only do their best with what they know. And that's why it's so important to me that I came on and I spoke to you, because how can you have a chance of being happy and fulfilling your life and your destiny if you don't even truly know who you are and the way you are and why you are the way you are? You're heading for a fall before you've even got up to run the race. And so that's why it was so important to me that I came on and spoke to you, because I want people to live a happy life. I want them to go for their dreams and be the best they can be. Life's hard enough. We're going to have enough chucked at us anyway. That's one less thing, huge thing, that if you go and get diagnosed, or if you go, maybe, and you read a book just because you've listened to this, amazing. My job is done.
It's such a valuable resource. And it's only recently that the conversation's happening, like particularly with women and girls. It's such a injustice.
And you are, I think, to a lot of women with ADHD, you are such a beacon of hope. And it's so lovely that a man is able to comprehend and understand us and how different we are. Because if you can do that, then we feel like maybe a man we love or men in our lives that we want to understand us, when we've hidden more than anybody else probably with ADHD, who we really are, in case it's too crazy or it's not enough or it's too much. You know, I think I stand here on behalf of many women and say, I thank you, Alex, because no, seriously, you've put such a light on it. You've made such a difference. So yeah, I don't know if that was part of your plan or what makes you feel proud, but you have. And when I've kind of could have like, oh, no, I'm not going to look at it. And then I see you pop up on Instagram and you're saying, okay, so women, if you're this, if you're that, and you're feeling this and you're feeling that, and I'm like, it's me. There's no getting away from it. And he says, I'm all right just as I am. Yay, Alex, come on, we need you on wheels.
I've started off by just posting and talking about my own personal experiences. And what happened was I was getting a lot of...
Now you've got all these ADHD women in love with you because they know that you understand them and that you think they're lovely anyway.
And also I've realised how feminine I am.
Yeah,
I was talking about my own experiences, and I just
absolutely
women relating to my own experiences more.
And I think that again, that's another thing that's changing. Like, it's becoming less man-woman and more like we are who we are. We love how we love. We behave how we behave. And it's all right.
I've got a little bit of acting experience myself. I've done a little bit of AmDram, amateur dramatics in the past.
Is this why you called me on the show, really? Come on, what is it?
Trying to boost my career, my dear. you got to. It's about who you know. A little show at Eastbourne years ago. Yeah.
Did you really?
Yeah, Honk. It was a musical of the Ugly Duckling.
So are you a frustrated performer?
Well, maybe this is the reason.
What can we do? We should get you doing something.
Oh gosh, what could we do? Well, no, I've always been terrible at learning lines.
Yeah. Do something with autocue then.
Well, if I'm doing
not theatre. I mean, I'm not sure if we can get you doing the Phantom of the Opera just yet. Let's get you doing something with autocue first,
okay,
and we'll go from there.
So, how are you with learning lines?
So for me, you know this because I've told you, but I thought that I was just like genius. I had this photographic memory and I could learn them, and that how could I ever have ADHD? Because I can remember everything. Genius. No. What I realised was that I can remember everything for the first 2 takes. And that, again, was brilliant for Eastenders. They called me One Take Tiff. They did. They'd be like, okay, Martine, you need to just fall down the stairs. This is the last scene of the day. The crew are relying on you. They'd be like, come on, One Take Tiff, you can do this. And I'd be like, oh, no pressure. This whole scene is like 20 pages long. I've got to do this, do this, do this, do this. And I'd do it. But I noticed that if there was a rewrite and we had to go back to it, or by take 4, 5, there were bits I would start to forget. I mean, how could that be possible when I knew not only my lines, but maybe Ross Kemp's lines and some Barbara Windsor's lines and whoever I was working with, I knew their lines too. I'd go, yeah, and you say, and I say, and you say, and I say. And it was almost like I'd use up all my brain's juice to be perfect and know everything. Spot on, but you had to get me on those first 3 takes. And like I say, it kind of like, it moulded to my masking perfectly, Eastenders.
A huge thing we talk about on the podcast is imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
have you ever experienced this? And did you experience this leaping from soap opera into a Hollywood movie?
My God, I felt it all the time in my own life. And I think somehow, some way, I don't know if it's just me, but on an unconscious level, I seem to put myself in situations that will make me face that. Did you do that? Did you, if you look back, do you find that you would go and do things that would, you'd be drawn, or you would do things that would challenge your imposter syndrome?
I think subconsciously,
Yeah.
you're trying to always collect evidence to counter it.
Yes.
And I wasn't aware that I was doing it. An example now, I do talks on stage, and I've said this before, every time I do one, I'm terrified that I feel completely underqualified. Like they've chosen the wrong person. I shouldn't be there talking on stage about ADHD or social media based on my sort of previous career. And every time I do a talk, I just feel terrified about feeling underqualified. But then I do it, and I try and so hard intentionally like store that memory and that evidence that it went well. And I spoke to people afterwards, and they said it was good. And I really try and journal and write down those conversations. So next time I do it again, hopefully that's enough evidence.
That's a really lovely way of looking at it. And I meant the complete opposite. I meant, did you ever deliberately put yourself in situations where you'd have to more than ever feel imposter? You feel that imposter syndrome. I knew that going from Eastenders to then having a pop career was the thing that everyone said, you don't do, it won't work. It happened for Kylie and Jason maybe successfully, but everybody else is naffaz. It's never going to be successful. It's never going to work. And if it is, it's going to be the biggest joke ever. And there I was, like, over 1 million records later, kind of like proved my point that, you know, I'd had the 6 top 10 hits or whatever, and the album had gone double platinum, and the next album had gone gold, and I was writing stuff. And I just seemed to keep putting myself in situations where I would have to face the fact that I did feel like an imposter. I don't know why I did it. Maybe you can tell me why I did it.
Well, it's tricky, isn't it? I think, you know, is it imposter syndrome, or is it your quest for growth? Because I think that's what imposter syndrome is sometimes. It's like your drive to achieve something in a particular area, but your subconscious hasn't quite caught up. Like your subconscious has a set of evidence-based experiences which has defined your capabilities in any particular area. If you're going for an audition or going for a promotion at work or whatever it is, your subconscious isn't on board with that.
No.
That's your drive coming from wherever. Like you need to, is that coming from an insecurity? Is that coming from trying to please your parents? Is that coming from someone said something when you were 7 and now you're trying to prove them wrong? So you're going for this thing, but your subconscious isn't on that train, isn't on board.
And you know what it all comes down to? The why. It's not necessarily the how or the who or whatever. It's like, why? Why are you doing this? And are you doing this from a place of love and compassion and respect for yourself? Or are you doing this from a place of lack of self-esteem, doubt, fear? Because whenever you do that, Martine, it ends up in disaster in the end. So for me, for a lot of the people that I know, a lot of my friends or family that have ADHD, we are more and more asking, why are we doing this? It's really important that we know why, and we take that time out to be conscious and not flit and not distract and just sit with ourselves, just for, if nothing else, for that why, because it's your root of everything for us, I think. You know, when we can go back to those bad habits, those things that we've got used to feeling that we think are normal. It's amazing how you can shake it up when you say why. Like, why? Yeah, but why? And then you say that, but why? Like a kid in a way. And you go back and you ask, oh my God. Silly cow. All that time.
you have this awareness now, and you've got the ADHD diagnosis. If you could go back in time with that awareness and whisper something into the young Martine ear, right at that moment you were about to sign to join the biggest soap opera in the UK, what would you tell that younger version of yourself?
That you are enough exactly as you are. Don't morph. Don't bend. Don't apologise. Because it's going to make you so tired. And it will lead to other problems. And you won't be able to sit still with yourself. Just stone cold sober. You'll be looking for more and more bigger things to distract your pain or your discomfort, and it never needed to be there. And people can only help you with what they know, and sadly nobody around you knows what they need to know to help you. So just know that you're on this journey and know that you're enough, and just be you. And I never felt like I could just be me. I never just felt like I was enough, ever. And it was such a waste of energy. And again, I always felt in my gut as the real me, all of me, that I was meant to be a mother. And that's why I was so devastated when the ME was protecting my body, overprotecting it. And, they've now said that, the amygdala in the brain is kind of stuck, it's inflated, and it's kind of overprotecting you because it doesn't feel safe. And it's flooding you with pain that normal painkillers don't help you with because it's coming from the brain, it's not coming from your body. And I thought, how can I feel so strongly that this is going to be the making of me if my body's not going to allow it? And I keep, getting pregnant, but then not having a child. It's painful, and again, it just made me feel less than and not enough. And then all the doctors and everybody said, there's just no way physically you can keep a child. And I got pregnant naturally, thought I'm going to lose it. And I didn't. And I didn't. And then I had Rafferty in 2015. And I held him for the first time. And I looked at him. And that was the beginning, I think, of me being conscious and aware of this true unconditional love. And that maybe I was all right. And that no matter what, I was going to let this little person know that he was great. No matter how he was, no matter how complicated he was going to be, he's going to be great. And he was fine exactly as he was. So I was right about that being a mother was the making of me, because it made me be the most truthful and honest over a period of time, don't get me wrong, that I could be, because I wanted to be that example to him. And another reason I want to be so aware of my ADHD is that if he has those tendencies or he has any of that behaviour, which I think he will, I want to understand it. I don't want it to be a taboo subject. I don't want it to be demeaned or talked about in any way other than a different way of coming at things. And it's all right, it's allowed, it's fine. And sometimes you have to, I get a little bit upset sometimes when people say, it's saturated now, everybody's talking about ADHD and everyone's got it, everyone's got something. And I know, and they kind of say it in a way that they're a bit pissed off, and I get it, but it takes that oversaturation within our world for some people to even get a smidge of it consciously. And if I had to bang on about it forever, so that more people were allowed to be themselves without that pain and discomfort that I had or you had, then I don't care. Before I would have. Before I'd been like, it's not what people want from me. And now I'm like, I don't care. I I don't want that for him. I don't want that for the next generation. I don't want them to struggle so hard with something that was never meant to be a struggle. I think it's always been. I think we've always had different amounts of masculine, feminine, the way our brains come at things, artistic, creative, intellectual, academic. It's always been like that. And I feel like we're late to the party, if I'm honest. I feel like we're like, if some aliens were watching football, they'd be like, oh, come on. No shit, Sherlock. Of course you're all different. Of course your brains think different. Of course,
It's so amazing to hear that you've got the awareness and the thought process to be aware of potential traits in your child and to have that in your mind when you're parenting, because I think so many people with neurodivergent conditions are shamed by their parents for behaviours, traits that are connected to neurodivergence.
Or just ignored.
Or corrected.
And because people look at it as a slight on them and not what's kindest for you. And you think, actually, this isn't about you. Nothing to do with you. Take yourself out of the equation and just help me. That's loving me. That's what I need. Google it at least. Take an interest. The amount of people that say, oh, I really feel for you, Martine, with that, the ME and now the ADHD. And then you think, but hold on, I talk to them about it and I can see they still have no idea about my conditions. And these are people that are in my circle. And, I'll drive them nuts until they know what these things are, because awareness it always helps. I don't know a time when it's never helped.
We're halfway through the episode now, and I know what you're all thinking. Where the hell is the midway sponsor we've all been patiently waiting for, Alex? Well, I'm glad you asked. A word from our sponsor, Stasis. Stasis is a first-of-its-kind supplement intricately designed to counteract the downsides of stimulants, something that millions of people struggle with. With any stimulant, there's the risk of drawbacks that could come in the form of afternoon crashes, trouble sleeping, or general irritability. Firstly, know you are not alone. And secondly, why you should give Stasis a try. Stasis contains natural ingredients that help level out the less desirable effects of stimulants like Adderall or Vyvanse. It's been precision formulated by specialists to help regulate dopamine levels, ward off cortisol spikes, and target oxidative stress, which are the root causes of those energy crashes and irritability I mentioned earlier. It's a supplement you take with your stimulant so you can get all the benefits without suffering from the downsides. Less brain fog, less jitters, increased focus, more sustained energy throughout the day, and less stress. These are all things reported by users of Stasis. ADHD Chatter listeners can get 20% off with the link in the description. Try it for yourself. And maybe I'm biased, but there is one other proven way to relieve stress, and that's by carrying on watching the episode. Do you think you've grown to love yourself now? And do you feel comfortable in your own skin? And is that a journey that started pre-diagnosis or post-diagnosis?
I think when my brother passed away, and like I said to you, you look at that very strong, definite end of life, and that it could be gone like that. He was due to be married. 2 weeks later, I was his maid of honour. And suddenly, I was never going to see him again. And he was such an inspiration to me, Alex, because he was told that because of his diagnosis, which was really like blurry and hazy, but with special needs, that he would only ever amount to this, or he'd only ever amount to that. And he smashed through those boxes. And what I struggle with, he would dream of. He would dream of just being able to be in a relationship with somebody. He would dream of just being able to have a job, any job. And so whilst I had these dizzy heights, he was my anchor. He was my like, oh my God, what am I worrying about? But then again, I felt guilty because I felt like I had scars and battles within me that were just as great as him. but mine just weren't as obvious. And I've always been the one in my family who will fix everything. I make everything better for everybody. I'm the strong one. She'll always be all right. She's always fine, Martine. She'll always brush herself down and carry on. That's the way she is. And there were times that I just did not feel like that. And yeah, I just think that when my brother passed away, I decided that shit got real. And I was just like, we're here for a good time, not for a long time. And the only way I can embrace the true goodness in me is to know all of me and to let that come up to the surface and learn about it and embrace it. It's time. It's just time. And it took time to do that. And I noticed things in my own family, in my friendship circles, and being aware and conscious and not covering for people anymore, not trying to be all things to all people anymore. I had no choice but to wake up and smell the coffee for how things really were rather than how I wanted them to be. And it wasn't always nice and it wasn't always pretty at all. And there are some relationships that I've had to put over there. And it's changed my life forever. But I wouldn't change that change for anything, because I do love myself now. And I'm making these decisions of putting those people there and who's worthy of my time and who's worthy of me being vulnerable with and sharing all of my complicated, messy fabulousness with. Who's earned that right for me to be that vulnerable with, rather than me just oversharing because I want to be liked and I want to be loved. I just don't do that anymore. I just do it if I want to do it. And I can't explain it. It's just this like groundedness and this gravitas within myself of I owe myself that now. And there's a peace that comes with that I never thought I'd say, somebody with ADHD, but there's a peace that comes with it. Even my talking a million miles an hour and saying those stuff, it's with a peace. And even though it might not seem calm, it's calm for me inside. It's my happy place. And things have happened in my life and massive changes have happened. And I don't think that if I hadn't have known about my diagnosis and if I hadn't have dealt with life and death with my brother and all of those things, I don't think I'd have coped with it as truly and as authentically and with the grace that I have if I hadn't have known those things. It's been a complete life-changing experience. And I was right to be scared. I was right to put it off. I was right to be nervous because it's huge. It is huge. I think to just say, get your diagnosis, know what you've got and, get on with it. It's not something that you should take on lightly. Not because it's something bad, not because it's something weird, not because it's something that is anything you should be anything other than proud of because it's who you are. But any self-exploration takes guts. It changes life around you. It changes people around you because you change and you have to be prepared to make those changes and deal with the consequences of that. But I wouldn't change anything I've done or the changes that went with it. I really wouldn't. Nothing is worth the cost of my peace and my sense of self anymore. And it's one of those things that once you do it, you just can't go back. It just can't be any other way.
Putting boundaries around yourself is such a difficult thing for so many people to do in the community. And I think what you're talking about is once you begin to do that, once you learn how to put those boundaries around you, once you learn to stand up for yourself and say no to things, you can look at people and think, they're not good for me. Yeah. Start cutting people out of your life, start adding people in. It's rebuilding often a lifetime of just being a people pleaser and saying yes too much and overcommitting. And then we wonder why some of us don't have any self-esteem or self-confidence, and going on that journey of building those walls, building those boundaries.
Yeah.
You know, it's a journey, liberating and self-empowering, and brick by brick, you can build that confidence back and really build a self-awareness.
You do really start to feel it, and it does become easier. You know, like you can get really scared that it's always going to be that difficult. And yeah, there's an element that you are a work in progress. We all are anyway, no matter what we are. But it's just, it does get easier. Those big boulders in life of having ADHD, it becomes like gravel. You know, those obstacles, rather than these big rocks that you go, oh! It's like, yeah, oh, okay. Oops, sorry. Clumsy ADHD. I can blame the ADHD for the clumsiness now. I've got something to blame things for now.
How does anxiety manifest itself in you? And has that been a struggle in the past?
I didn't think it was. I just thought I was an excitable person. But I realised that anxiety and fear was what I lived every breath with. And it's something I'm still working on. I would get irrational fear because I wouldn't let it out, and I didn't know how to, and I didn't know why. It would come out in the most bizarre ways. As a child, I would be so fearful about if someone died. You know, at 4 years old, I'd be sobbing. Going, Mum, you know, on a Sunday, I can't sleep. And, you know, what if you die in the night? Or what if I die? Or, you know, I would just get this irrational, dark, really bizarre fear. And I would shake. I would shake with it. And I would sometimes feel like I felt so strangled in my chest and my throat if I got nervous to do something, the expectation. And I would be exhausted by just trying to, I was normally more anxious about all the things I had to remember to do for the job than the job itself. The job itself for me was a breeze, but all the stuff around it, I found so hard. And I was leaving myself the same amount of time that other people would leave themselves. Oh, yeah. And I'd kid myself. Oh, yeah, I can get everything done and ready in 15 minutes. Of course I can. Everything's 15, 20 minutes. Everything in life is 15, 20 minutes. Genuinely is. Of course it is. I can do it in that time. Other people do it in that time. And it's all easy. Woo! No. And then I'm like sweating. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. And thinking that the world's going to end. And then I rock up and the job was easy. And I don't know why I'm exhausted because the job was easy. And then I get in the cab on the way back after filming. I think, why am I so exhausted? I'm falling asleep in the car. And I'm like, pfft. And it was because of all the other stuff that was hard for me. That bit of pretending, like, and losing myself and embracing all the senses and indulging it and feeling all those emotions was the easy bit. It was the schedule, the time, the car, all the things you need, this, that. That was the stuff that I found so hard, and I'd get so nervous about it. And then my biggest anxiety, when I realised that you weren't really allowed to be human in our industry, you had to be like a machine. You had to deliver no matter what. And when I first got unwell, when I was doing my Fair Lady, and I got better, and I'd literally go like that, like I just did. They go, oh, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you going to cough? Do you need it? You know, injections and medication and all these things to make sure that the show must go on and that you were good because you were sacrificing your health and you were not taking care of yourself at all and doing things you should not be doing because the show should carry on no matter what. That meant that you were a true professional to the point that you could hurt yourself. You could make yourself really unwell. I would get so scared if I got sick. I'd be petrified. I still get nervous now. And I think, and then that then makes it worse. And I know all of that, but there's just this thing from when I was so young and it was so public and I was so ridiculed because I got sick after working 6 days a week from 6 a.m. till 8 p.m. in Eastenders, then flying around the world, living in New York, flying back, doing albums, tours, concerts, road shows, you name it, recording, videos, photo shoots, having to look and be perfect and be beautiful and kind and lovely and fashionable and stylish and on the covers of all the magazines so that I didn't let down the dream. It's exhausting even just saying it. And living it was so much fun when it was fun. It was like a drug. But then when it was hard, you just felt like you crashed and burned. You felt like you were just swallowed up in this abyss. You just had to try and pull yourself out, to try and get out and just be normal. And extreme highs and lows. I think because naturally I'm very, if I'm not careful and I wallow in that too much or I embrace that too much, it can be really toxic and it can be just not a good place for me. And I know that now. And, I'm done with doing anything that just doesn't fuel me anymore, doesn't serve me anymore. Can't be asked. Can't be bothered. Just want to have a lovely time now. That saying Kate Moss said, I've got it framed in my kitchen. Why the fuck can I have fun all the time? And I am like somebody that I never really needed drugs or drink because it was a flick of a switch emotionally that I could put on in my head with the right music, the right outfit and the right company. I would just go out and I would last as long as anybody else on any substance on the planet. And I'd probably be the last one going. I'd just go into this zone of like, and I loved it. I was buzzing on it and didn't want it to end. Loved it. And loved feeling those highs. Sometimes loved the feeling of the tragic lows as well. Like I'd be romantic about it. It was my way of kind of getting through those times. I'd romanticize it. It was my way of trying to balance out the highs and lows.
The time piece is very relatable. So you said you're trying to cram in 15, you think 15 minutes is loads of time. You've got loads to get ready. I think I heard
genuinely, it's like childbirth. And when women have like 6 children, they've had the most horrific labour. And it's almost like they forget. They genuinely forget, and I'm going to have another one. And like, but you nearly died in the last one. It was really, really, really bad. Did I though? Did I though? Did I really though? Yeah, you did. You did. You really did die on it. No. And then they're there again. They're like, yes, I did. What am I thinking of? And it's almost like you just have this like Dory from Nemo moment. You just genuinely forget, and you genuinely believe at that moment in time that you are capable of doing that.
The health anxiety as well, you alluded to there. I mean, I think that's very relatable. For me personally, I still go to the GP more often than I should. I get a headache, I find a spot, whatever it is, and my default is to think that I'm dying.
Yeah.
And it's so overwhelming. I can't sleep.
That's the perfectionist
terrified.
in us. Because we want to be thorough, even if it's about our own death. I knew I did the best I could do. I'm a perfectionist. And I knew before even the doctor knew, the expert who's seen the scans, I knew before from what I Googled and what I did and everything, and I said it, and I went to the doctor and I was thorough. I knew before he knew that I was going to die of that tumour. I mean, what do you think? Do you think that's what you're going to say?
The GP says I'm fine. I'm like, no, I want to see a specialist. Refer me now.
Make me right. Because I'm a really thorough person. No one's as thorough as me.
Because I'm thinking, my anxiety is linked to RSD. Rejection sensitive dysphoria.
I don't know that. This is all new to me. And I've said to you when I came on this show, like, I don't mind admitting there's going to be loads of things that you say that I'm babying you to all of this, and I'm finding my feet as I go. So what's that?
Essentially, it's a extreme reaction to perceived or real criticism or rejection. Are there any particular moments that you can think back of and you wish that you asserted boundaries better and you said no? Were there any uncomfortable moments?
Where do I begin? I mean, I've got a list as long as my arm. You know, I said yes to far too long a run in My Fair Lady. I said yes to 18 months. I stopped after a year. I was coughing up blood. You know, I had rave reviews. I did lots of shows. And I felt like I couldn't compete with this machine of them saying I wasn't on when I was on. And I wish that I'd have had the power of conviction and confidence and knowing of myself to say, it's time to say no, I need to stop now. And that wasn't failing, and that wasn't lesson. That was me actually honouring myself and my limits and the way that I need to do things. Because it wasn't just physical, like my nerves started to get really bad. And the medication that I was put on to keep me going affected my mood, my confidence. Nothing seemed like it was coming from me. I just felt like everything, I look back at that time and there were, you know, all these amazing moments, but it's just a blur. Because I feel like I was just traumatized by it all. But then I have these moments of emotional clarity that I can still hang on to now. Moments like when I would walk out, you know, at the beginning of the second act, when I'd become this lady in My Fair Lady and people would gasp. And, you know, that was amazing. But that addiction to making other people feel so fabulous cost me even feeling somewhere near normal. And the sad thing is that if I'd have just monitored and paced it and had the strength of conviction and confidence to know if I do it a certain way, that would have been enough. It didn't have to be like that. It became monstrous. And at that time, when I left My Fair Lady, and the press onslaught every day, I'd fallen from grace, you know, this golden girl, you know, one of us who'd done so well had like fallen from grace, and they loved it. They were like on it like a feast. And it was selling and selling and selling, and they kept going and going and going, and my relationship had broken up and my confidence was at an all-time low, and I didn't know what job I was going to do next. And I don't think I've ever felt so lost in all my life. And I sat in the back of a taxi and he said, "Where do you want to go?" And I said, "I don't know." Very ADHD. "I don't know." And I just said, "You just drive around." And in that moment, I just remember thinking, that feels better. Why does that feel better? And I think it was just because I was allowing myself to not know where I was going to go, and not just in that journey in the taxi, like in my life. And that was all right. Why did I have to always have all the answers? For every journalist, every person who thought they were a therapist, of course I didn't know. I was still a baby. And there was just something really lovely about being vulnerable and being honest and just saying, "I don't know." You just drive around. I don't know.
You're articulating your own sort of post-diagnosis grief that we mentioned earlier. You're looking back and really highlighting moments that could have been different if you had known earlier, you know, standing up for yourself, asserting those boundaries. To see the strides you've made, I think, you know, it's really inspiring, and the listeners will pick up on that.
I hope so. I think that it's been a long journey, but I think it needed to take as long as it took. And I hate admitting that because I'm an impatient person. And, you know, I want it to happen when I feel like I want it to happen in the moment, and it feels good. And making me wait for anything is hell for me. I hate it. And people say, you've got to play the long game. I go, oh, fuck. Really? Oh, no. How boring. Really? Again? Everything feels like the long game to me. You know, and so I want to grab those bits with no apologies along the way, that I just want to fly by the seat of my pants and just embrace it. I'm kind of like worried for everybody. I'm going to just be like, hello.
It is hilarious. And
With a dead straight face and concern, it is hilarious.
well, you're talking about time, and as you're saying it, my gaze was going back to the clock on the table, and my sort of mind is racing to find out the explanation. I mean, it sounds like you might have already said it indirectly. The item, the clock. Why is that your ADHD item?
I think because the world has this sense of time that I don't. And unless I literally have a bell ringing or an alarm going off on my phone or some sort of noise to remind me to be back in the room or to be back on earth, I don't remember. I'm too busy feeling. I'm too busy being. And so that alarm reminds me to do everything from brush my teeth and get washed to get my son ready for school, breakfast. I mean, if you saw the list of my alarms, and they're all snoozed, of course.
How many have you got in the
Oh,
row?
15 easy, just for like the morning. Oh, yeah, I'll get you in a minute. I'm a bit late with that, but I'm going to catch up with it. Of course, I tell myself I'm going to catch up with it. Why do I say that to myself? It's so unkind. I'm not going to catch up with it. But those alarms keep me in a world that I also love and that people that I love are in, and make me more productive in ways that other people can digest and monitor, and that's all good as well. But they do remind me a bit of pressure.
Martine, I want to do the ADHD agony aunt section.
Yay!
It's called the washing machine of woes because my ADHD item is a washing machine because I always leave my clothes in the washing machine.
Me too.
Do you do that as well?
Yeah, and they are damp. How long do you leave it in there for?
Well, I've got to say, not as long as I'm getting better at it.
Good.
I have to say, the reason is because I've started using this, an app called Tiimo sponsors the show, and I've used them, and they've helped me remember. Not perfect, but I'm getting better. Basically, it's an agony aunt section, and the Instagram community send me their ADHD woes. And I read it out of the washing machine of woe and see what you think. This week, someone's asked, my mum is 60 and she thinks she's too old to get a diagnosis, but I'm almost sure she has it. Do you think she should get a diagnosis?
What do you think it's for?
See,
I'm very literal. Unless it says what it's for, I don't know.
Let's
I don't want to just assume that it's all about us and the show.
it's all about us.
Doesn't want to be rude.
I'll add in a word.
Is that another thing, being really inappropriate?
Well, sometimes, yeah, you can sort of impulsively say stuff, can't you? It's like, has that got you in trouble in the past?
Yeah.
Saying stuff and then thinking, oh, shit.
Of course it has. Of course it has. Why do you think that part was written for me in Love Actually? Because I go blur, literally, I go blur. That bit that I say, see what I said, I just went blur. I was improvising that. And Richard wrote the part for me. And they knew that, I mean, I don't know if to be flattered or not, but basically I've got Tourette's and impulses and stuff to just say, is what it is, isn't it?
Okay, so should we assume it's...
Should we assume it's ADHD? We'll do the really obvious link, shall we?
Should her mum get a diagnosis of ADHD, and do you think that would benefit her?
Absolutely. Never too late to discover who you are. And if that's part of it, great. And like I say, I don't believe that our diagnosis is all of us at all. But I think that if anything can ease the load in your life and help you understand who you are and help you be a bit happier, why wouldn't you do it? Why wouldn't you?
Yeah. You've been away from the public eye for a while. Do you think that's been good for you? Your mental health?
Yeah, absolutely. Because even in life, normally, or in the real world, or whatever you want to call it, I think when you have ADHD, you're kind of always looking for validation, and that external validation, approval, or that nod and that seal of like, you're okay, what you're doing is right. And I think every decision I made from such a young age, I started in the industry when I was 9 years old. And, you know, consciously or unconsciously, every decision I made, from my personal life and love life to my next career move to how I looked and my appearance and all of those things I knew were going to be in an arena and treated like it wasn't real, when somebody very real and very sensitive was very much alive and trying to keep kicking. So it was really nice I kind of felt like I had like this child, the responsibility of fame, very young, that I was trying my best to be responsible for and think of with every decision I had to make. And there was also that fear in me of being really poor again and not being able to look after people again, and what would happen if I didn't. And I decided to not do that anymore anyway, and see what stayed and what fell away. And again, it was scary. I didn't know if I wanted to see who would be around and who wouldn't without those conditions and without those things there. But I think if I'd have been in the public eye still, I'd have just been on that wheel. And I think taking time out, in answer to your question, from the public eye, it's something that I've been really lucky that my career has changed and evolved without me even meaning it to. In COVID and lockdown, like a lot of people did, I just naturally had more time on my hands to respond to people about, where's that dress from? Where's that rug in your living room from? And now my biggest thing that I do is mainly my branding work. And I love it because I get to do different things all the time, do them well. I don't ever do anything that I don't like or I don't believe in. And I think people in this day and age where there's a lot of stuff out there that isn't really authentic or real, I think they just appreciate you being honest and saying no to jobs without the panic, you know, of, oh, what if I don't get another job? I think in the long run, it's kind of put me in good stead that I only do the things that I like. But again, that takes, guts. And even when my manager still rings now and I go, oh no, he's like, are you sure? Like, it's this money, it's crazy money, it's amazing, Martine. And I'm like, no, it's just not me. It's just not me. But I still find it hard, but I do it. And like I say, it's that muscle that you just keep flexing, keep flexing, keep flexing.
Do you think in hindsight, now you've got your diagnosis, there's particular behaviours that make sense?
Oh God, yeah. Yeah, like the impulsiveness that I have, the really, really big decisions, huge decisions. Or I could think about a million things and worry myself silly about why I shouldn't do something. And then feel even more guilt and worry because I just go and do it anyway. The whole time thing, like thinking I have more time than I do. The whole perfectionist thing. And in a way, like today, I'm never ever normally late for work, ever. I'm always like spot on perfect. I'm wondering if today, like even if I could have shaved off 15 minutes and got here a bit early because I was late today, which I never am for work. And I said to you, I am for me personally, but I'm not for work. Why do I think that it's all right to be late for people in real life, but not be late for people with work? That's not right either. But I think maybe there was a part of me today that, as horrified as I was and as unprofessional as I felt, just thought, get there when I get there. Like, I'm doing the best I can do. And maybe I could shave off 15 minutes if I tell the man to put his foot down and I give myself a heart attack. But then I'm going to have a heart attack and I won't be very good on the show. But all these things go through my head. And I'm learning now just to tell myself just to shut up in the most loving of ways. Oh, shut up, Martine. You're going off on one. Just stop.
How do you think your children would describe your ADHD and your sort of various neurodivergent eccentricities?
My son says he thinks that I'm the most fun mum he knows. And he said all his friends love coming over to us because I'm fun and I'm very good at like enjoying them and being with them in the moment. So I think my son sees me as just really good fun. And I think that I'm able to embrace my inner child a lot more easily. And yeah, I think at the moment, his age at 9, I think he thinks that I'm just the best, most fun mum because of it, which is lovely, actually, coming from a pure and uncensored point of view. It's really lovely that he only sees the positives. I like that. It's refreshing. And it's also partly true. There are some wonderful parts and we have, I think, the most charming people I've ever met have probably been people with ADHD. They just have a charm, I think. Can't help but love them. Something about them that's really loving and really enticing and provocative, and you want to know more. You find them quite fascinating. So yeah, it's nice that someone so pure and such a blank canvas just thinks you're fun and brilliant. It's nice.
Why was it important for you to come on here today and talk about ADHD?
I think because I have realised firsthand that by not knowing and by not having the awareness, I had so much more unnecessary trauma in my life. And, you know, I want to help people. I want to inspire people. And I want to walk the walk and talk the talk. And, you know, I get fed up of people saying, oh, you're so strong, or, oh, you're a survivor, or all of these things, you know, again, all these names and all these labels. I just want to do life, and I want to know I gave it my best shot. And I want anybody listening to this to know that they deserve that as well, and they can have it. And I feel the most at peace and loving of myself I've ever felt. I feel, honestly, I can't, my whole outlook on life has changed. It's changed everything. It's huge. And you don't think it at the time, but as you live it and you keep going and you keep going, you make completely different choices and decisions because you know who you are, what you're worth, and that your way was never wrong. Your way was just your way. And as time goes on, I really believe that our way will just be another way. And there won't be special books for it. There won't be things that we have to do or reminders because we won't need to conform.
If you could go back in time and have one conversation with one person with your fresh perspective of ADHD diagnosis and everything that you know about yourself now, who would that person be and why?
Myself. Because I'm the one that I owe that explanation to the most. I'm the person that has to live with me every day. I'm the person that has to understand me every day. I'm the person that has to go to sleep with me, wake up with me. And I think the biggest, longest love affair you should have is the one that you have with yourself. And I want to be in love with me and all of my facets and all of those different things. And I would go back and I would say to her, you're remarkable. You're resilient. When everybody else loses their head, you manage to keep yours. You're amazing in a crisis. You lift people up. You inspire people. And you were always, always enough. And you are enough, more than enough. And you've got nothing to prove. Exhale, breathe, just be. And I would say I love you and thank you for doing my best. That'd be it. Your eyes are all sparkly. What does that mean? Did I say something right, according to the ADHD one?
No, it was, I mean, we wish we could go back, don't we? We can't, but what we can do is we can put messages out there like what you've just said, and there will be younger people who do hear it.
Good. That makes me feel like all the years of, feeling lost and grasping at straws and nothing feeling substantial or enough. If I can help someone else just feel that little bit more of their core and grounding and weight and gravitas of them as they are, you are definitely enough. You're lovely, you're brilliant, you're gorgeous, you're beautiful, you're lovable, all of those things. And anybody who makes you feel otherwise, get rid. Go, bye-bye.
What's next for you? What do you want to achieve moving forward in life?
I want to... I'm really enjoying this part of my life where I kind of feel like I'm alive again. I feel like I've got all the hope and excitement that I had when I was in my late teens. But this time, I've got the wisdom and the knowledge of somebody that's older and who knows myself and what I am and exactly what I am and exactly what I'm not. And I'm okay with that. And I'm really excited to just do normal life. I think normal life is magical. And I think unless you've had the struggle of that and being able to do it, the ease that comes with knowing what you are and what you're not, you just feel so grateful. And so the things that I couldn't really absorb or accept or be fully present for before, I want to soak up like that coral reef or that sponge, or I just want to soak it all up. And I want to live a life that inspires my son. Say, my mum's amazing. God, she's like brave. She just goes for it. And no apology. She's just brilliant. What a woman. If I can do that, I'll be happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's super inspiring, Martine. It's really, really amazing to hear.
Thank you.
We have a closing tradition on the podcast.
I know you do, because you know I'm a fan.
Well, we've changed the tradition slightly. What were you expecting?
No, go on. What is it?
Well, normally we ask, what's your most impulsive thing?
Yeah.
But now, that does come later. But the postbox has arrived. And the reason that's there is because the guest before you, and if we're lucky, you'll do the same later, writes down 3 rules to live by.
Okay.
And then I deliver the letter to the current guest, i.e. you, and you read them. And we see what's been passed to the next guest.
To the next guest. Okay. 3 rules to live by. Treat people how you want to be treated. Could not agree more. Each birthday is a gift, not a given. So live life to the fullest. Could not agree more again. Look good, feel good, baby. Yeah, I love that. I love that. Can I keep it or do I have to put it in there?
No, you can keep the rules. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, if you've got time, we'd love for you to write. After
Nah.
just one rule. No. That's the boundaries we were talking about. Saying no.
Yeah. No, I'm not going to write. I'm not writing anything.
I'm not overcommitting.
Find your own way.
Nonsense. Demand.
She's horrible. Horrible woman.
What is the most impulsive thing you've ever done?
Ooh. Probably say yes to an engagement that I really didn't want to say yes to.
When did that happen? So
I'm not telling you. I'm not going to tell you who it was, poor sod. You had to live it. Never mind me go over it.
So sorry, someone proposed you
Someone proposed to me, yeah.
and you impulsively said yes?
Yeah, and I'd not known them very long at all.
I see. I thought you meant like an engagement, as in like a dinner party or something.
No, an engagement to be married for the
Okay.
rest of my life. And I was such a people pleaser that I said yes.
So when did you back out? When did you realise that it's not what you wanted?
Oh, not long after. I mean, we had this whirlwind, impulsive relationship. And I don't know how the press didn't find out, but they didn't. And it's fabulous. Hedonistic, bonkers. I think he was as bonkers as me. And we kind of just egged each other on, really, to be even more bonkers. And it was brilliant. Loved it. Wouldn't change it. But it was the most impulsive thing I've ever done, was saying yes to marrying the guy. I think we'd been dating for about 2 months maximum. And even then it was kind of like I'd been flitting off to LA and he'd been going here, there and everywhere. So yeah, I'd probably say that's probably the most impulsive thing I've ever done.
If you were in Vegas at the time of the impulsive yes, because you could have got married quite quickly there, do you think
Yeah.
you would have actually gone over the line?
Oh yeah.
And got
yeah.
married?
Oh yeah. Why not?
Dangerous, isn't it, Vegas, if you're impulsive?
And I felt great at the time.
Yeah.
And then straight afterwards, I'd probably gone, oh, no. I'm wild. I'm free. I'm sexy. I'm just like, woohoo. And then I'm like, oh, no, I'm so not. I'm like, little old granny, what did I do that for? I'm really worried now. I've got to sit with this guy and with my cardigan when I'm really old and live the rest of my days out with this guy. I've said for better or worse, it's legally binding. What have I done?
It's going to be expensive to get out of it.
Yeah, I'd be like, oh, God, all the reasons, all the reasons that I shouldn't have done it. I'd have just put myself through the ringer probably. Yeah, I think that's probably the most impulsive thing I've ever done. Impulsive. I mean, there's so many, Alex. I mean, some of them I just can't say. I don't think I'd ever work again.
How many screenshots have you got on your phone?
I take screenshots of everything to remember them. Those
the
things.
intention at the time is well intentioned.
Oh, yeah.
But then they just.
I didn't know this was a thing. Oh, yeah. Let's see.
It must play into the memory loss issue because we seem to all take screenshots.
75,434?
Images, or surely not screenshots.
Yeah.
I mean, you just.
Is that a lot?
Well, the previous record was 6,000.
Oh, I've got 75,434.
So that's like. That can't be right. That's like.
It is. That's my recents.
What about emails? How many unread emails have you got on your phone?
Okay, let's have a look. Well, I've got a couple of addresses. So I've got 8,945 in one and 5,854 in another. And in iCloud, I've got 144. And on my other one, I've got 2,947. Flagged, I've got 18,047.
Okay, so it's about 30,000 in total. I sort of added that up in my head.
Okay.
That's a new record probably as well. So you're like beating all the
Inbox,
records.
5,854.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
It means you've got a lot of unread emails.
Right.
That's quite common. That's why I asked this question, because it seems we all just
Zone out.
just don't. Or is it because we choose the important ones and we're just really good at blocking out the ones that are going to use up our energy?
No, I think there are times that we just genuinely just don't look at the things because
Yeah.
we just have had enough.
Yeah.
And we actually do need to look at them.
Like council tax
They are really
demands.
important. They are really important. Well, sometimes it's something, that you do really want to do. But for some reason, you just can't face it in that moment.
Do you remember to take your reusable shopping bags to the supermarket?
No, and then I impulsively believe that I'm gonna use the one that's really expensive by Anya Hindmarch, whatever it is. And it's £30, and I get another one, or I get a canvas one with a regal crest on it from Waitrose or something. And I think, but it's fine because I'm going to use this one. I'm going to remember this one because this one's really, really nice. I've got a Fortnum and Mason one and I'll use that. No. And then I off the cuff, I go to whilst I can quickly remember, I'll go in now. And then I'm like, the shame of it. I go, can I have a couple of carrier bags, please?
Got a cupboard in my kitchen. It's like overflowing, just forcing it shut, just full of reusable shopping bags.
So bad.
What about domains? Do you have any domains?
Yeah.
How many?
Companies that I've started. I've got one that I'm all spiritual and holistic, never got round to it. Lotus something. Another one, Raven something. Got another one when I was going to do a makeup thing, makeup brand thing that I just didn't see through. Oh, yeah. Companies, domains, entrepreneur in me. Back then, some of them really, really came off good.
Martine, this has been truly fascinating. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time.
And exhausting. And now I'm going to go home and have a really good sleep. Me too.
Thank you, Martine.
Thank you, darling. Pleasure to do it and keep up the amazing work.
Thank you so much.
Honestly, you are much needed.
Thank you.
Thank you.